Okay, look at that.
Look at
This
that,
is
man.
look at this, man. Feel like
Whoa, dude. You are a Vegas. You are in Vegas.
well, you're bringing me into the Miami Dolphins neighborhood with that hat on, man. What
I
you talking
gotta,
about?
you gotta show love. You gotta support no matter what. Whether it's going good or bad or whatever. And you know what? It's going bad for 31 other teams. So
Yeah. Hey, by the way,
so
you guys had a good season.
it's all
I mean,
perspective, bro. It's all perspective. So
I
what's it?
don't I don't disagree with that, man. But listen, you guys have had like historically losing seasons as the Dolphins, right? So it's hard to rally
Oh,
around a team like
again,
that.
that's all perspective. If you pull it out throughout the history and you go from the 70s, no, we
Yeah.
haven't. We
Yeah.
haven't. 70s and 80s and 90s, it was great. Post when Tom Brady arrived, it's been miserable.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he retired, and I know he wasn't in the same division anymore. He was in Tampa, but still, he was a bad seed for Miami. So
I love it, man.
the new era.
I love it. You know, so I'm pumped about this one because we have a good mutual friend that introduced us, David. Shout out to David Lip, man. Love that guy to death. He's like a brother to me.
He's actually
Um,
getting married.
are you going to be there?
I don't think I'm invited to the wedding, but I was invited to the bachelor party in
Oh,
Vegas. But I think I can only go for like one night.
oh,
I'm not
you.
there for the whole. I have a show, but
I see.
I was like, I'll stop by. I think because he used to live.
Okay, I found this on the web for I said.
Look at
Check it out.
that.
There
Look
you
at that
go.
interference. I don't know how Siri got involved right there, man. That's
What
pretty
you want to
impressive.
know? What
She
part?
she 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 obviously heard exactly what you're saying. She said Vegas. Let's talk about Vegas.
Hilarious.
Oh, that's funny. All right, man. So listen, um, I respect I respect what you do professionally. I think it is a phenomenal journey of reaching the level of accomplishment in what you do. And when it comes to getting in front of an audience and ripping through some jokes and trying to get people to laugh, I mean, I've sat in those audiences and I've thought, damn, man, that's got to be the most challenging thing to do in terms of keeping people on the edge of their seats and smiling and laughing. And, you know, obviously you probably get some middle fingers and some FUs and some things like that. But I'm going to roll this back a little bit, Michael, and take you to the earlier days when you were starting to identify that comedy was something that you either had inside of you or that, you know, tipped you off because you were at a show. What, in essence, was it that started you down the journey to explore this idea of becoming a comedian, man? And then I'm sure you'll say a bunch of great things in that, and then I'll take off from there with it, man. So fill us in on what that looked like.
Well, the seed was planted when I was in middle school. I was on the couch watching, maybe one of those late night HBO things with my dad, and I don't know if that was my first time seeing it. I remember I would always see HBO was the place you would see comedy. It was not on TV. And maybe it was, but I only saw it on TV, and it was Chris Rock and George Carlin. You would see him at the end. So I didn't, know who he was until he was old. But I would see him. I remember seeing Robin Williams and then Chris Rock and then even Ellen, right? Those are like four off the top of my head. And maybe had seen it because like, all you did was watch HBO. HBO was what you watched. And they sometimes would have these comedy things. And I didn't care, but I was just like, huh. And you would see previews and you would just be like, people are laughing at this guy. That's cool. And then maybe we were watching it one night and I was in middle school and I asked my dad, I go, so they just like go up there and like they're just talking and people laugh at them? Like just he's like, no, it's a routine. Like they write it down and like he explained what he thought it was,
Mm-hmm.
from he's like, but no, it's an act. Like it's they don't just go up and make it up. So he knew enough, thankfully, because I think some people do think that still, even today. Like even you
Absolutely.
can go to a 40-year-old and be like, I think they just go up there and make shit up. Like, no. So he knew enough to be like, no, it's not, you idiot. Like an Italian father. No, what are you, a fucking idiot? It's like, no, that's an act. And I was like, oh, interesting. And then at that point, when he said that in my head, I go, I want to do that.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I want to do that. I mean, but I also still thought I could also be a professional athlete still. So, that was in there too because I was that young.
Interesting.
Maybe
Yeah.
like 12, 13. But I think I was at the end where I was like, man, I'm not the best on the team anymore.
Mm,
So, but everybody wants to be a professional athlete, right? For the most
yeah.
part, two ways. You either want to be a musician, a singer, or an athlete, right?
Yeah.
There's two, and then sometimes you dabble in wanting to be a fireman, but
Or a
or
police officer.
a police officer, right?
Yeah.
Those are the four things. And then so I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And then I go on with life. You go to high school, you meet friends, and you don't think about your life because you're like the only thing that matters is having fun. And I go to call, and in high school I thought about it, and I would tell people, like I remember freshman sophomore year, I would tell people, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, and I would vocally express that I wanted to do it, and then that faded away.
Hmm.
But I was in drama in high school, which there was the stigma to where like I wasn't proud of it. I kind of kept it to myself because I didn't want people to think I was gay because that's what the stigma was around back then, which is, it's 2023 now. I wouldn't care if people thought I was gay.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of still, I'm just kidding. But you like that was the thing back then. But in drama, I didn't want to do theater. I wanted to like act. I wanted to do sitcom acting or be a Jim Carrey. He was an influence too. So then I would do that a little bit, and then by like junior senior year, I was like, well, college. I want to go party. That looks fun. And I lost track of believing in that world because I was around a bunch of people who are realists. And we grow up in a society where you're taught to choose things that will give you security. That's kind of what's pushed upon you even today.
Mm-hmm.
You need security. You need health insurance. You need a 401k. You need to have a consistent income because what if something happens? That's what they're telling you. What if this happens? That's the whole America is what if something happens? What if an earthquake happens? What if a tornado happens? What if you break your leg? What if this happens? What if that happens? I'm not going to live with what if. What's the point?
That's fire, by the way. I love that. That's so good.
What if it happens? Then
Mm-hmm.
you know what? We live in the moment, and I'll deal with that then. But I am not gonna live in fear, and that's what they want you to do. They want you to live in fear so that you don't do things that are not good for the economy or the world, which is smart too to do that because our economy strives when people are doing what you're doing, where you're in a world where you're making money, but part of that money goes into the, taxes and stuff and helps fund what our country does. They want you in the rat race. They want you to be trained to spend 4 years in college and spend money on education system that's not that great.
Right.
You're not like blown away. College isn't that hard. It's when you get into the specialty schools and grad school, that's where it matters. And they want you to go to grad school. They want you to spend 8 years. If you want to make more than $300,000 a year, you got to spend 8 years in college. If you spend 4, you're capping at 200, unless you're in sales.
Right.
If you're in sales, you didn't chase your dream because then you probably had a skill set to go do something. And now they're holding you back to sales. Like you have a personality for sales, right? And I'm going off a little bit.
Oh, I'm with it, man. Keep going.
So that's what they do. Then you go to college. And when you go to college, you're like, now you got to get a job. And they're like, you got to have a family. Why would you not have a family? They want to trap you. Have a family, man. Because you're going to train your kids to do what you did. And then it's a system. It's like a whole pyramid scheme. And then America's set. And then they just sit back and they're like, all right, what do we want the people to believe? Let's put it on the news. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just putting this together. Right now is I'm fucking blowing my mind right now. But like, and then they're just like, all right, well they'll watch the news, so just let's tell them what's happening. And then everything's kind of controlled in that. Like I don't watch the news at all. I have no idea what's going on unless it's on a social media app. And then I get a little wind of it and I understand what it is and I take it in and I'm like, what's funny about that? And maybe I'll riff about it, but it's not what I do in comedy. I kind of just talk about my life. But anyways, so there's all that, and I got caught up in that. And then I'm going to college. I'm like, all right, but I'm all about having a good time. I didn't think about my future. I was like, well, what am I gonna do? And I remember people like, what do you want to do? And I was like, nothing sounds fun.
Mm.
I want to have fun, and nothing sounds fun. I go, I love sports. How could I work for a sports team? That would be so fun. I go, how do I work for a team? Can't be a coach. It's too late. I'm already not in the system, right? Because if you want to be in coaching, you got to get in that system in high school, right? And then work your way up. And that's a like a comedy career too. You don't make it as a coach until your 40s or 50s. There are some that are my age that are in the NFL. Those are like the Mickey Mantle, Ken Griffey Jr.'s of coaching.
Sean McVay, for example, right?
That's like one. That's how many Sean McVays have there been? One. Most of these guys, there's a little bit more. So even those guys who are 38, they've been coaching since they're 18. Point exactly is, it's not a 10,000 hours thing like they used to tell you. It's a fucking 20,000 hours. It's 20 years. The best at everything is 20 years in, and that's when you start to know people. I'm 12 and a half years in. In 8 years, everybody in the world will know who I am doing stand-up. There's no, unless I die, there's nothing that's going to get in the way of that. So going back to what did I want to do? So I was like, okay, then you find out, can I be a doctor on the team? Like, that's crazy. Let me go take one of those classes. Took one class. I go, I don't know what they're saying. So my brain's not smart enough for this. So I'm out. So now I'm back to like, what the hell am I going to do? And by senior year, that's when I was just like, remember what you wanted to do? And then I started thinking about like, well, what do I have to lose? I got nothing set up for me. I wasn't like blessed with a family business. They're like, you're going to go do sales. And I did sales and I was like, this sucks. I'm in a cubicle. And I go, fuck it, man. Why don't I try to do what I want to do? Because I didn't want to live in regret. I didn't want to be like, man, what if at least I tried? You have to be okay with failing. And that's all what stand-up is. The best comedian has failed so many times. The best athlete, in a way, has too, because he's tried so many different things. So it's like, dude, there's nothing anybody can say to me. I've been on stage so many times that I'm just like, I don't give a shit. And like people say, man, that's got to be the hardest thing. I go, for you, it's not really. I've just done it so many times. The hardest thing is saying that I want to do it every day. That's it. Doing the actual thing. If you have the mindset of going, I'll do this every single day, you can figure it out if you have work ethic.
Yeah.
Like anything. But you have to have the passion to do it. Like, you want to be a head coach in the NFL? Then at high school, you had to have the passion to be like, I want to watch film. I want to learn to play. And you have to want to do that every day. You can't just say, I want to have the work ethic to do it. No, you have to have the passion too. So it's where your passion drives the work ethic. You have the passion and work ethic.
Yeah, man. It's hard to beat you.
And then the only thing stopping you is the outside noise, the society saying that's impossible. You can't do it. Nobody can do it. You're not supposed to do this. 1 in a million. And it's like there's enough people in this world for everyone to have a fan base in anything, not even entertainment. There's so many people that are willing to be like, I subscribe to you. There's 8 billion people. If you find 1 million people to go, I subscribe to you, you're paying all of your family's bills.
Yeah, man.
If that's
a great audience.
If money drives you.
Right.
I mean, listen, money shouldn't drive you, but we all want to be comfortable. It's easier. I don't need to have a mansion, but I don't want to be like, I got to get this booked. You know what I mean? You want it to be a little bit easier so you can enjoy it more. So I don't know. To answer your question, I've thought about doing stand-up from the moment I learned about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, you said a few things in there that I think are so invaluable, just in total packaging between, even a comedian has failed more times than what you would imagine, and then so forth. They get to where they want to be. It's a similar parallel in life with most things. I'm interested in knowing, you're kind of in that earlier phase. How do you start to put yourself out there and then push yourself into this industry Are you leveraging some now business sales skills that you said you tried out and then you went and started selling yourself? Do you go and align yourself with the right people? What is your approach in that time to start getting yourself building up in this now 12-year run? Because I'm with you, man. I think that everybody, if you can do it for 20 years, dude, you're going to be a beast, right? Like that's just the compounding effect of it. So, but I want to walk that back a little bit because I think, maybe I think this parallel here, Michael, is that people are getting started in their own journeys, and I want them to have that idea that when you get started, here are some approaches that you can take, right? And I think that's more what I'm trying to get out of you here.
I think that, well, and I think this could this could work in or apply to any industry really, is whatever you're doing to start, or whatever the thing you're doing and you're starting with, it's not going to be anywhere close to that in 5 years or 10 years. So that's the beauty of journeys. You don't know where it goes. It's a maze, right? You don't know how it ends. If you did, well, then wouldn't that be boring? You know what I mean? Like, everybody has goals and plans and structure, but name one time in life when it's actually gone that way. With anything, your sports team, the year you planned after New Year's, your life in general, if you have at least 30 years under your belt, has anything ever gone just so as planned that's real and tangible besides, oh, my workout routine during the day? Even that doesn't go the same way. Even when you go to gym and go, I'm going to do this, this, and this, something happens. Some guy's on that machine, right? And you're like, well, okay, well, I guess I'll do this one then.
Yeah. Or you run into a friend and you talk for an hour and you're like, damn, there goes my work. I got to go to work.
That's a symbol of life.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Isn't a whole workout routine the same exact thing as life? You're like, all right, I'm going to do chest. I'm going to do first incline, then flat bench, then flies. You get there and you can't do incline. So you start with flies. That's your journey. But at least you're going on it, and then you learn. And you're like, well, I can't go at 2 p.m. because then I have to start with flies. So then maybe I have to work out earlier so I could start with incline. You know what I mean? Like, you adjust your journey, and so I don't know if that answers that question, but as far as the structuring around like the business side of things, that could be different in other avenues, I guess. But as far as in stand-up, I know what I have to do. And then I just find people who are on board with it. And I go, do you want to be on my team? When I was starting out, I had a manager, and I was like, I would ask him, what do you think about this? How do I do this? What do I do this? Can you do this for me? And now I have a guy and a girl, and they work in 2 different fields. And I told him, I go, you want to work with me? And he's like, yeah. I go, then I'm going to put you in touch with this girl. And I put them in touch in the email, and I go, here's what's going to happen. Anything business related goes on this thread of the email. Okay. And then he's like, I know this person, that person. I go, I don't want you putting energy in that. I have that. You put energy in this. I'm telling them what to do because they work for me. Right. If I'm going to have to give them 10% of money, then they're going to do what I want because now I know what I want. Right. So it's a little different. Whereas, like, I don't know if you're building a team. In entertainment, you want to build a team because then you want people to listen to you, but also believe in you. So in the different avenues, I don't know if that's the same as where, I guess I could answer the question with, like, when I was starting out, I would follow the people I liked, right? Like, if I was in sales, I would, let's say I worked for a company that's 500 employees. I didn't know this when I was 23, by the way. But now, actually, side thing, when I was 23 and I had these sales jobs, they actually have it structured so easy for you. There's a script. And they're like, you have a personality, that's why we hired you. If you do this script, we've done the research to know that you'll have a pretty high success percentage in sales if you just do what it is. And when you're 23, you're like, I'll do it my way. And you're an idiot. And then you make it harder on yourself. But I'm 38 now. If I went to any sales job in the country, I walk in and I'm like, entry level. They're like, you're 38, entry level job. I go, it's fine. What's the deal? All right, base 30K. You're ready out of college. We'll give you 30K. plus your whatever if you make on sales. I'd look at it and I'd be the highest sales guy on the floor because I understand the structure of how easy they actually do make it and know that they've been doing it for 20 years. So don't fucking try to reinvent the wheel. But that's what you do when you're younger, right? With the whole sales thing, you're an idiot. And I couldn't figure it out. But now knowing how it is, I could. That's kind of something like with what I was saying with like representation and people you're around in your business. That stuff is impossible to know. You have to grow as a human and know things that have nothing to do with your business. You just don't know because you're young and dumb. Not everyone is. There are Sean McVays of sales,
Right.
who are just wise beyond years at 24, who are like an adult. Good for you. You and I had to make mistakes and do some stupid shit in our 20s before we're like, okay, I'm going to live. If I'm going to live to 80, that was a fun little chapter.
Yeah.
Who cares? There's no regret either.
Right.
You know what I mean? So so now going back to what we were saying as far as what I would do in stand up, I would see comedians and I would be like, and like I said in the sales force, I'd go, who's the guy you see in your sales force or whatever job you're in? If you're at a hospital, there's a doctor, that's probably different. I don't know. But who's someone you want to emulate your career path like? Isn't that a good way? And then you branch off as you grow. You pull off the pieces you've learned from. You know what I mean? A baseball player doesn't. You see it in basketball the most. If you watch the NBA, and you won't know this until you're our age, right? Because I didn't notice it until I got to an age where you start seeing different generations of players. This is something fascinating about sports that you don't pick up on when you're a kid. You see these athletes and you're like, these are amazing athletes. And then our dads are like, yeah. They see who they emulated. Like I see Kobe Bryant and Jason Tatum. Like if you're a basketball fan, it's fascinating. As you saw Kobe, you saw Jordan and Kobe. Because Kobe loved Jordan. He learned from him. There's not even they have a video that shows them they're almost identical.
Right. You
could almost do that. His build is a little bit bigger. I think he's like 6'8". But Jason Tatum he emulated Kobe, and he's got a very similar game. Donovan Mitchell on the Cleveland Cavaliers now plays identical to Dwayne Wade. He's a better shooter. It's a different generation. There's players now that I'm watching in the NBA that are emulating all these guys I grew up watching. And it's fascinating because they're like, oh, that's what they're doing. And then over time, Jason Tatum's 5 years in. When he's 10, 12 years in, you're going to be like, this guy's got his own thing going now. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you do in your field. That's what you do in comedy. You learn. Every comic who's 5 years in, you can tell who their favorite comic is. If you've been doing comedy a long time. You can't. Right. But I can.
Right.
I know the little things that they're emulating because they watch that person all the time. And we all are a habit of, emulate. Like, that's just what we do. That's everything. You're doing this podcast because you saw someone who's in your industry do it like this. So you're learning how to do it like this. You're emulating off someone you look up to. You didn't come up with this yourself. You didn't say, hey, let me start a podcast. Nobody did. Someone did 25 years ago. Yeah. But you know what I mean? And when I do a sports podcast, I've only been kind of doing it. I emulate Rich Eisen. That's who I watch. I love watching his show. He's my favorite. So I want to talk and I want to be real and I don't want to try to be charismatic and funny like Colin Cowherd, who's like, it's like a show. Let me give you an analogy. Yeah. I don't want to do a show where it's written. I want to just riff and talk sports and tell you what I think based off of what I've watched. And that's what I say on the sports. I go, listen, hey, man, I'm a comedian and I love sports. And I am coming up with my opinion based off of the three shows I watch. Pat McAfee, Rich Eisen, and, the Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio and Chris Sims. Those are the three shows I love to watch. I take all the information that they give me and I form an opinion, and that's what I'm doing for you. I am no journalist. I am not a professional. I'm just throwing out my opinion, and you can take what you want from that with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's like what I'm doing with that. Same thing with podcasting. I do a solo podcast. I bounce off the producer. I didn't come up with that idea. I saw all the different ways to do podcasts. I've tried ones with other comedians where I have a group of comedians. I've tried one with one other comedian. I've tried solo by myself. I tried now so many different ways. And I'm like, this works best for me. I found what works best for me. And I've been doing podcasting for fucking 5, 6, 7 years. But there's no failure. There's just like, all right, this has run its course. Now let me try this way. Because eventually you'll find something that you have a groove with. You know what I mean?
Let me jump in real quick with that, because I think that's a phenomenal point. And I just did a podcast with an NBA TV analyst, and he was talking about the same thing that he did with Stephen A. Smith, Mark Jackson, and Jalen Rose, and then ended up becoming a guy that's regularly featured on SportsCenter, First Take. Now he's with the Rockets. But in that example that you just gave us between the different times of podcasting with the group, one-on-one, interview, bouncing off a producer, how did you identify that those weren't it for you, and that where you are now is the it for you and the way that you're doing it? And in some cases, much like, maybe you have a specific comedic style. How do you eventually say, wow, this is mine? Is it a feeling that you have inside, or were you just like, was it awkward or off? Because I think a lot of people are trying to find, their voice and their style, right? In content creation, or their own podcast, or their business. And it's not that it's the one, this is it, be all type of thing that you're saying. But for you, what were you trying to source internally to identify that was the thing?
Well, Manny, I'm going to be honest with you. You think that every time. You have to. You think you found it every time. And that's the beauty of the art. Because why else would you do it? You go, this is it. You're doing that right now. You're like, I got it. This is I'm going to do this 500 times. I'm going to do this style podcast 500 times. And you might, but you also might be like, no, you know what? I want to do it a different way. And I came up with that whole sports thing just the other day. I've been doing Dolphins recaps for 2 seasons, recapping the Dolphins, and only specifically doing the Dolphins because I'm a big Dolphins fan. But then I was like,
sorry for you.
Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I also want to do, I kind of want to also talk about other teams, especially during the playoffs. So I was like, let me rebrand it. So I rebranded it. And so I will talk about the Dolphins a lot, and most of the fan base will be Dolphin fans. But I also want to talk about the NBA a little bit when it's not football season. So it's called Fanatical with Michael Lenoci. I'm a fan of certain sports, but I'm also only going to talk about football and basketball for the most part, right? And then the other day I was like, I'm not trying to be anything. I came up with that a couple weeks ago, and I start saying it on each episode. I go, listen, if you're a fan, I want to tell you how I'm coming at this. I'm no journalist. I'm no special. I watch these 3 shows. This is my opinion based off of what I've gathered. And for me, I'm like, that's a good take. Now people understand. They're coming to this show and they're like, all right, he's like me, but he just has the balls to talk about what his thoughts are. And maybe I can relate to him because he's more relatable than some of these journalists because he's a comedian. And I like that. And I think that could be something for me there. As far as the podcasting, every time I did the podcast, I thought this is going to be the way. Because that's why I did it. I was like, I'm going to do this 500 times and it's going to be something. And then how did I know when the fire, I was like, this isn't, I was like, this isn't working. I go, this isn't like, I'm not excited to do it. That's a big indicator. I'm not excited to do it.
Right.
Like, I feel stale. I feel like I'm going to a job. I don't want to go to a job. That's why I did stand up. I want to so when I'm doing my podcast, I go, well, I need to be on my own because I can't control someone else's brain. And if I don't have this, I understand that having a group podcast sometimes is like having a TV show and it's acting a little bit, but I don't necessarily want to be silly when I'm talking on a podcast. I kind of want to be more informative or just kind of riff what's going on in my mind. And that's what I do with my podcast and my producer. And sometimes we have scheduling conflicts and I do it by myself in my podcast room. And those episodes I think are some people connect with better because now I don't know where I'm going to go. I'll have some bullet points, but then I just start talking and like how we are. I've gone into 5 different things and then I'm like, well, that's the episode. And then it's just like an episode inside my brain. And that's why I call it Life with Lenoci. And that's why I like that, because I'm like, I'm not trying to be funny here. I just want to give you a little insight to my brain. And sometimes with the producer, it's silly. I'll go, well, here's a funny thing I'm thinking. And that's that. And that one I do feel good about. And now I'm 43 weeks into that one. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, I think the longest podcast I actually ever did was the first one I did years ago, and it was a dating one, and we did over 200, right? But eventually I grew out of that because I wasn't in my I wasn't young anymore. And I was like, I
Mm.
don't want to be reading people's grotesque stories
Yeah.
when I'm 50. I don't want to be
Right.
like reading some college people would write in and be like, "Hey, I dated this girl. We left the bar and we're at University of Indiana," and I'm just like, "What am I doing? I'm reading some 19-year-old kid's hookup story." So I was like, I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So, but now like I think this is the one, and I like doing it. Still 42 weeks in. So that's how you got to keep having fun. But I think that you do believe every time you start one, you're like, this is the one. You have to, right? Otherwise, why would you?
Yeah, that is a fantastic way to settle that thought there, because I think people will try to find the perfect thing and therefore then avoid it, and then it never gets started. And by virtue of what you're saying, it's okay to get started, and then by virtue of just doing it, it evolves,
Yeah.
and then you've
It
got something.
also you learn
Yeah,
what does and doesn't work for you.
right.
Because how many times are people going to hit gold right away? Like, I mean, that's hard because
Hmm.
unless you specifically think it out and know what you want, and it's easier for you because you have more success,
Mm,
and people are just coming at you with questions or something.
right. Plus, it sounds like you've removed the constraint of having to do it with other constituents involved, and it's more your creativity. You can just jam the way that you want to because that's what feels best to you. Very, very, very neat perspective, man. So let's talk about this. I think you've seen some phenomenal stages, man. I mean, you've been in the largest ballrooms with some of the biggest names, current day, previous day, however
Yeah.
they decide to look at it. Opened up for some great names. I think I think you've been exposed to some, and we talked about this before. I'm very curious because I think this question I'm about to ask you is going to really help a lot of people. You've been exposed to some privileges of life, like entertainers, athletes. They women come to them left and right. They have all these opportunities to go out and party and do all these crazy things. And trust me, man, like when we're younger, as we both know, I living here in Vegas for a decade. That's all I did for a decade. I was trying to figure life out, but at the same
Yeah.
time, was having fun. For you, you know, did you did you welcome that at the earlier time when you starting to rise into some more of your current day fame, and then eventually realize like this could be good for me or this isn't good for me, or like where did you go from sort of like you just said, younger Michael Lenoci in the early 20s, mid 20s to more of a man today in that arena? Because dude, those temptations are strong, man. I can't imagine that it's any easy for anybody to say that they want to continue to find their inner self, right? So I'm curious how you've evaluated that.
You're talking about partying, basically.
I think it all, man. I think the partying, the opportunities that you get, exposed to. Like, dude, we went, like, for example, when you were in Vegas, we went to hang out the chain smokers, right? Like, that was like, I'm sure that happens to you all the time, but
That was a
that's
blast.
just, it was a blast, right? So, how do you control the blast? Because
I think
unless
I think you enjoy it.
you enjoy it, yeah. Hey, that's a good way to look at it
Like,
too.
I mean, like if you, it depends what you're, I was doing Laugh Factory Las Vegas over the summer, and I think I was there with like, I don't know, I was with some other comics that I'm friends with them in the green room, but maybe they're older, so I'm there by myself for a week. When you do that Laugh Factory, you're there from Monday to Sunday.
Right.
It's long, and I mostly just do the 2 shows a night, and you get food vouchers. It's a whatever gig, but I go upstairs and I watch my sets and I edit clips and stuff, and I bring a PlayStation and I'll play video games. And for the most part, I stay. But then Saturday comes around and I see that they're performing a date pool party. I'm like, perfect. Like, cause like, you know, at night I don't want to go out and be hungover, but I'm like, oh, why not go indulge and see
Yeah.
and just be around and observe it? But I didn't get effed up because I knew I had a job. But I went and hung out and was like, oh, this is cool just to kind of be around it. But don't get me wrong, if I had a group of friends in Vegas for a bachelor party, I might slip up and have a good time because one thing I will say at a responsible level, like if I was working and I had two shows, I might have fun and then do my shows and kind of just do them to get through them and then go out after with them and have that fun night.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, you got to have fun and have those memories because you don't know when it ends.
Yeah, man.
And
I can
you
get down with
could
that.
literally, and you don't have to, and fun, you don't I mean, it doesn't mean you have to drink or do drugs I mean, some people are sober that might listen to this. You can still enjoy yourself, right?
Right.
And be around people who are doing that if it doesn't, if you know, if it doesn't trigger you or whatever. But like
Mhm.
when I look back on life, even right now, I don't remember what I was doing a year ago this week. I don't know what I did on Friday, February 24th last year. I don't know what I did that day. I don't know. I have no idea.
Right.
I couldn't guess. If I had to look up on Instagram and maybe see some stories because you can do stuff like that, then I could be reminded and then I'd be like, oh yeah. But you know what I do remember is my buddy being at my buddy's bachelor party in Lake Tahoe. Or the year before being on a trip with some friends, or being at game 7 of the World Series with my dad in '97,
Mhm.
or you know, this one weekend for Halloween Horror Nights freshman year of college. Do you see what I'm saying? So as you go throughout life, and I'm only 38, so
Right.
what's going to happen when I'm 70? When I'm 70, I'm still going to remember that World Series. I'm going to remember that bachelor party. I am not going to remember this podcast. I'm not going to remember even maybe going to that chain smokers Friday. I will the time with you. I've done it 3 times.
Mhm.
I'll remember that because that was a moment
Yeah.
where like, this is pretty cool. You're like, we get to see a little behind the limelight of what it's like to be a mega star, something that you'll never reach in either of our worlds because music is the most popular.
Absolutely, man.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's
it
like the
goes
modern day rock star.
it's the universal language.
Mhm.
So to even be around that energy, and that's what it's about, to feel the energy. You're like, this is crazy. And you almost have a little taste of going, oh, I see why people go crazy. This is crazy. This is more powerful than heroin,
Huh.
more powerful than fentanyl. Like this is
Yeah.
crazy. If you were doing this every night and you're not a stable person, you could see how this could drive someone to insanity. You could
Mhm.
see how someone could be like, I could do whatever I want. I could see how someone could end up being like Kanye. Of course, he's
Mhm.
done stadiums for
Mm.
20 years. You're gonna be an insane person. You're not a
Yeah.
regular human. You walk out to stadiums and people crying over you. You're gonna be like, am I a god?
Mhm.
If you have a little craziness in you,
Wow, wow, that's
I
great,
am
man.
able to understand that. So, but the point being is, in the process of your journey, like we were talking about, and the passion which you love doing is so fun. There are things that are more fun. There are always things that are more fun in all aspects of life, right? You even see it with Kevin Hart. He's at the top of the game, and
Mhm.
nobody will ever touch that,
Mhm.
right? Because I don't want to. I don't want to be that successful. I want to
Interesting.
be present with the friends I have, and I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and only sleep 6 hours a day because I have some complex. Good for
Mhm.
you. But I also like relaxing and I want to watch football on Sundays. And I
Right.
want to chill and have little hobbies like I do with sports shows and know other things and have time rather than like, I got to make money. I got to make money. I got to make money. I got to be famous. I got to be famous. So, you know what I mean? But like, even that guy, I guarantee he'll never forget the time and all the success he has. I guarantee he'll never forget when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and he tried to walk on stage and they didn't let him off. You know what I mean? Like he'll always remember that and laugh at it. You know what I mean? That will be one of the highlights when he's laying in his deathbed. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Oh,
So when
yeah.
you're in your deathbed, what are you going to be thinking about?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be thinking about how hard, like, you know, how hard you work? And the thing is, when you get older and you get our age, you don't know this when you're in your 20s. You love working. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. doing stuff last night. Like I love doing it. It's not like I'm like, this sucks that I got to do it. You're just like, it's because I'm creating stuff that I'm like, ooh, let's do this. I'll come up with an idea and my brain will be scattered. So, but I think the number one thing I've learned this just recently, that like you have to enjoy your life. Now,
Sure.
it doesn't have to be partying or going to a DJ. That could be going on a hiking trip to upstate Washington, whatever it is. You can't always consume yourself in this journey. You have to be present, and that's the hardest thing, I think, and especially when you start having relationships and you feel yourself with your partner just on each other's phone thinking about your work. What can you do next? Because you're not chasing the dating world. When you're dating, you're chasing, and that's fun. That's why dating's fun. You're like, I'm trying to get laid. I gotta get laid. How do I get laid? How do I take this girl out? It's fun. Ooh, I meet her. Her personality's fun.
Yeah.
She's sexy. I'm into it. Then you get in a relationship and it gets stale because you're so consumed with work. Like, well, I don't have to chase this. It's just there.
So true.
Then you gotta like be present, and that's something I struggle with, is being present with people in my life that I love or love me, and that's the balance where I'm like, well, how do I find the fire again and do something, because you know I'm not having fun sometimes. You know, that's a little thing, but I like, so to your question, how do I avoid it, is like, I don't always want to do it. I think that just comes with maturing in age, but I think it's okay to indulge in things every once in a while
Yeah.
and live a little bit, because you're going to remember those. Otherwise, you're going to sit back and be like, all I did was work too hard.
Yeah.
You
No,
know what
it's
I mean?
amazing, man.
And I think that happens with kids too. I mean,
Yeah.
I see it with, you don't want to miss their games or whatever. There's people like that though. They just are providers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then they miss out on their kids' lives. Because you got to think about it. You don't realize this either. And I don't have kids, but I'm an uncle. But it's only 14 years that you get to see them grow up. Once they hit 14, they're out. They're with their friends. They're adolescents. They're like, I want to build my independence. And they get to that independent life. And then it's not until about 27, 28, depending on your maturity, where you start going, oh shit, my parents give me a good life. You're like, get away.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting close to your 30s, you're like, oh, you start to appreciate your parents. You're like, oh, you look back, you're like, whoa, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as a parent, I'm not even a parent yet, but now you see how sad it is being a parent. Imagine if for those 14 years of your child's career, you're like, work, 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 work. You're like, I'm going to miss that because I got to keep working because I like doing it. And you're like, oh, now you don't have what my dad has. Oh, I went to game 7 with my son. Those little moments and memories. You got to make sure you create those memories.
Yeah.
Aren't going to come from your work. You'll have milestones in your career and you'll remember those. But every day, you're not you're not going to remember. You're going to remember those moments that are created outside of your journey. So that's what I think. You'll remember your milestones in your career, but you're not going to remember most of your journey. But you'll remember those moments you had outside of your journey with your friends and family.
Yeah. Wonderfully said, man. Yeah, no, I think it's a great answer to, a potentially challenging question. And I think everybody's journey is circumstantial to them, because, I can only imagine that let's go here. You work alongside people in the industry that are relentlessly working on the craft of being a better comic. You brought up Kevin Hart. You mentioned Jim Carrey earlier. Do you see guys that end up becoming the Kevins and the Jims in today's age? Do they choose that they want to be uber famous, or is it luck? Are they better or more talented than the next guy? Do they have the right support party? What is that ecosystem look like in terms of, who ends up becoming a Kevin Hart versus not? And is there some specific either characteristic traits or abilities or certain things that they are willing to do that the next guy is not to become that, so that, they end up where they are in these, particular current days?
I think there's a lot of variables, and they're all true. For instance, there's always a little bit of luck, right? And I think the only thing there's not a little bit of luck with is becoming a professional athlete. You have to. The luck part is, what is your body going to be like? Because if I knew the work ethic to become a professional athlete, I could have got behind that. But would my body be able to do it? Like, I can't even tell now when I play tennis or something like this. Injury is a big part of it.
Sure.
Some bodies are not meant to, like, you see it with professional athletes. Oh, he was so great, but he always get banged up. That's why LeBron's great. He has a little bit of good like, it's good genes. It's great genetic, lucky gene. Like, you think LeBron works harder than Giannis or Kevin Durant? Like, you think their work ethic is different? Kevin Durant has a different body than LeBron. Does he maybe not work on his body the same? Sure, but he's a lankier guy. His mentality is the same as LeBron's, if not even more. He's got more of Mamba mentality than LeBron. You know what I mean? So certain guys are like Derrick Rose. Remember him?
Hurt a lot.
You don't think he had a Jordan mentality?
Right.
He just was like, you don't think he worked on his body a lot? You don't think he put millions of dollars into his body? Dude, that's luck. He just kept getting these knee injuries and ends up being like a one-time MVP, still bouncing around the league. And don't get me wrong, it's a great career, but you're talking about a guy who could have been a Hall of Famer. So, I mean, that happens. And then there's the guy, back in the 90s with Shaq, Penny Hardaway. A lot of these guys. So there's that. In aspects of comedy, I think I work harder than 99% of the comics. Are there some comics that don't have to work as hard because they're a little bit more talented? Why are they more talented? They have a skill set because they worked on it? Or where does that come from? You know what I mean? Because if they're doing it, if I watch a 25-year-old and he's just so naturally great at impressions, that guy's a talented guy. Did he work on impressions when he was 7? Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. Or is he just like have that instinct? Someone might see me do crowd work and then riff off the cuff and then snap back so witty and be like, well, how did that happen? And then I would tell you, well, that's not luck. I mean, like, that's just from doing it so much. So that's work ethic to me. You know what I mean? But acting is work ethic. I can see I've seen people get really good at acting because it's an art that is learned with practice and stuff. Whereas stand up is like, you can only get better by doing it. You can't practice stand up without doing it. I can't practice stand up right now.
Right.
It's not going to do anything. I heard someone say this the other day. I forgot what show it was. It was maybe on one of these sports shows. They're like, you could have someone read 1,000 books about swimming, hours of swimming, and then he can get in the pool and drown. So it's like, you know what I mean? I thought that was brilliant. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, stand-up's kind of like that. And they were referencing a starting quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, how long can you learn to be a starting quarterback? You can only get better by trying. So Jim Carrey, I think the luck comes into, there's a machine. There definitely is a machine in the industry. And if you fit a profile or a type, they're definitely going to be like, hey, we want to help you because this can make us money right now. This specific type can make us money. Like, hey, let's look at the pool of talent we got going on at open mics and actors. We kind of need a heavy set black lady, big personality. All right, you got 100 of them right here. How many of those do stand up? We got 7. Let me see those 7. Let's pick one of those 7. All right, here you go. We're gonna help you. We're gonna put you in this. Let's see how you do. At that point, you got to perform. You got to do it.
Right.
If you don't, so Does that help a little bit? Yes. Jim Carrey showed up. So you can have a little bit of luck, but you can't. His talent was undeniable. The guy, when he was on the screen, was just the motherfucking beast of funny. Same with Robin Williams. Robin Williams wasn't the best stand-up comic, but he was a beast on the screen. He was a great actor. So was Jim Carrey. Kevin Hart was a beast on stage. He was undeniable in the beginning. And then he rode the wave and just kept going and going and going and didn't get content. I've watched people make it to A-list and get content, and I see him on stage drunk. They're enjoying the livelihood. They're just like, whatever, They're not trying to be the next producer. And I know Kevin indulges too, but like he's always trying to make something bigger and bigger and bigger, and wants to keep going. So I think it's all there's all these things. So you need a little bit of luck. There's a machine in the industry for sure too. But also when that machine picks you, you better hope you're ready, because you don't get a lot of shots, or you become undeniably where they can't say no. Like Sebastian, Sebastian
Maniscalco. Yeah.
He's got a movie coming out about him and his dad. Sebastian's not an actor. It's always kind of been a thing you've heard, is like he's not a good actor. And you can tell by the way he does his stand-up, he's not like necessarily an actor type of guy. He is Seinfeld-esque, where you could do a show about him and put great actors around him. Seinfeld wasn't a great actor. You didn't see him in movies. He had a great TV show, and he was surrounded by arguably the best female actress of all time, television star, right? I mean, from Veep, what's her name? I forget her name, but
same.
But either way, she's won the most Emmys ever. Okay,
right.
Then you have Kramer and you have George. All right, so you built this great show with all these great actors around a guy who doesn't act but gets to be himself. That whole thing is done now. We don't do TV shows anymore around comedy. It's just not a popular thing. It's streaming. Comedy now is based off of dramedy. It's single cam. It's not in front of a live audience. It's wittier. It's quicker. It's like Succession or Barry or all these shows right now. That's comedy. That's where comedy's going. Comedy's not going to be slapstick anymore because it evolves. It's an art, right? Comedy is just, it's where it is on TV. So now even movies, though, you can get big enough where you have a big enough fan base. You have Bert Kreischer has a movie coming out, and Sebastian. They're selling out arenas. If you sell out an arena, then they're like, well, this guy's selling millions of tickets all over the country. Why wouldn't we give him a movie? So now your talent, you've succeeded your talent. You don't have to be talented. They're just like, we'll write a movie. You write us a movie, and we'll put a bunch of great actors around you, because your fans are going to come see this on top of who else will go see it. And we'll put other actors in these movies. So we got Sebastian's movie about him and his dad and meeting his in-laws. And we're going to put Robert De Niro in it. So now we got Robert De Niro and Sebastian fans. So now we got this Italian-based crowd. And now people who know who Robert is are going to come see it. And people who knew Sebastian who are going to see it. And now we have those two people going to tell other Italians, this seems like we're going to make millions.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we do it? So you can get so good in your craft that they can't say no to you. And that happened with Rogan. He's like, I'll make a podcast that's so popular that Spotify gives me $300 million to interview people. It got so big that even if you didn't like Rogan, you're like, well, we have to. 10 million people listen to each episode.
Right.
That's so many listeners. So it's like, and he tried acting. He got into hosting, but like, he kept going. He's been doing comedy since 94.
I was just going to say, I forget he was a comedian. I mean, wow.
Yeah. So there was another aspect. So it's a little bit of luck. The work ethic is there too, but it's like, I do believe some people don't have to work as hard. Yes, I think they're naturally gifted. And I think going back to sports, are there guys naturally gifted as, LeBron and Giannis that don't work as hard? Probably, but that's why those two are the two best in the NBA. But like, there's definitely basketball players that indulge in the life and they're like, I got it. I'm lucky. I'm good enough. I'll play. And they're mediocre the whole career. And that's fine. They're allowed to be. They don't want to be the best NBA player. They like the lifestyle. They want to just make money, take care of their family, and live. They don't want to work 40 hours a week, watching film, training their body. because they got a little lucky. And does that happen in every industry? Sure. You at the right place at the right time. Are there certain people who do I think it's harder to be a white male or a black male in comedy and make it? Yes, because it's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Been done. I think a white, like people are like, oh, it's harder for women. Yeah, it is a guy's world. It's always going to be a guy's world. So it is harder for women, but it's also not, because you stand out more. If you're funny, you stick out like a sore thumb, right? Especially if you're a specific woman. Because on the big scale of things, you've had Joan Rivers, Chelsea Handler, Amy Schumer. So it's a specific white chick type. What famous black female comedian has there been yet? Tiffany had, like, there's still a world where this can happen. There's only a few. Ali Wong, Asian female comedian. There's only one. You know how many white straight male comedians that are famous and historically big are? 10 more. You know how many black straight men are? Over 10. So there's so much more room for more white straight women, black straight women, Asian straight. There's only one. There's more room for them. There's so many fans. There's enough for everyone. So that's where I'm saying, I'm not saying it's easier for you, but I'm saying there's more opportunity there. Do you know how great I'm not saying that you're not funny, but you have to be extra great to be great as a specific box that you're checked off of, if you're a white straight male or a black straight male. I think that's the hardest. I think the hardest is probably a black straight male. It's been done. All of the greatest comedians are black straight males. Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle,
Kevin Hart,
Martin Lawrence, Kevin Hart. So what are you doing different?
Eddie Murphy. Ooh.
Eddie Murphy. What are you doing different from them? That's hard, because you don't think they've hit all the angles. That's how great you have to be.
So that, dude, I love that part so much. You said something there that triggered me. So let's say that, for example, you're obviously wise and intelligent, and it's almost like the word is strategy. So we'll ask this question, another question, then we'll wrap up, man. I don't keep you all day. You probably got some stuff to do out there in LA.
Yeah, we're so busy over here.
Yeah. What's your angle then? Like, how do you approach it, considering that? I think this is like a fascinating direction we can go here right now with this question, because like you just said that, you revealed it. So it's like you realize that you have to have an angle, a uniqueness to get into this and earn your right. So what is that for you? Like, how do you approach that?
Tell me. I don't know. I don't know. They'll have to tell me. I think ultimately you just can only control the things you can control. And if you worry about the things you can't control, you'll drive yourself crazy.
Right.
So all I can do is keep making the sports podcast. Like I said, nobody does, I like to be adjacent on that. I don't think this is what's going to be. I don't think like that anymore. I'm doing what I want to do because, again, going back on, we don't know when this ends. So why not enjoy the journey? It might not ever happen, and that's fine.
Right.
In the process, I'm going to keep doing what I do forever. But this is the life I chose. And I don't know where I'm headed. And I don't know where I'll be in a year. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. And I don't know where I'll be in 10 years. I have ideas of where I'd like to be. But I've also lived long enough to know that, hey, when I go to the gym and I want to do flat bench first, sometimes I have to do flies first. So I don't know what my routine is going to be in 5 years. I have goals in my mind, and I'm doing the little things that I think will achieve those goals. But we don't know what the work you have to do to actually achieve any of those goals are, because they're things that are different blueprints for all of us. So all I know is I'm going to continue to do the things I like and making them, and continue to grow as a stand-up. My stand-up from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, is different than it is today. And it will be different in 5 years. And in 5 years, whatever my act is and whatever I'm doing, that could be it. I don't know what that is, but I'll find it along the way. So that's all I can control, is keep doing stand-up every day, do my podcast, and you don't know where it takes you. You just have to believe that you're headed in the right direction. And you have to believe that.
Wow.
because you are, because you're just learning. You're
Right.
learning, like everything I've said in this hour, I didn't know 4 years ago. So I have that information now. So you can never worry about how do I figure it out? This isn't a math problem. There is no figuring it out. And there's
Mm.
no rules and there's no blueprint. There's no blueprint to anything that takes risks. There's a blueprint to a sales job. Do this, say this, and if you make 100 calls, 30 of them times this will work. And that's a winning percentage in sales.
Mm-hmm.
30 phone calls, 70 fail, 30 great. There's no blueprint, but you can create one in your head and go, listen, I don't know what is making it or what is doing it. Aren't we doing it? What are we doing right now? Aren't we doing something that we want to do?
It. Yeah.
We're doing it. So then
Yeah.
what are we doing? Oh, because there's a certain comma in your bank account. That's the only thing that is changing your mind. And then when that happens, you're going to be like, well, now what? I'm still not happy. That's the beauty of art or whatever. You'll never be satisfied. You're always going to want something else or change or want to try something else or do something else. But the one dumb thing that everybody asks is like, well, how do you get into what you're talking about? That question's the root from a comma in a bank account, which is not even real. That was invented by humans. What's real is energy and emotion and communicating, and we're doing it. So what do we have to figure out? We just keep doing it and just see where this evolves.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, remember what it was 4 years ago? Now look at it, whatever it is, whatever you're doing.
I like what you say a lot, man. I think you have I didn't expect it. I didn't expect you to hit me with so much deep thought, to be completely honest with you. Not that I was, it's not like I doubted you or anything. I just didn't know what the answers would be like, but I'm feeling the vibes tremendously on the emotion, the energy, all that good stuff. Which I think is why it probably makes you such a great artist and comic to keep moving forward. The angle that you take in your delivery of how you see it is really unique to me. And I think that's going to be very catchy to a lot of people. Last thing before I ask you about what's all behind us and you tell us kind of where we can find you, where you're performing next. I think this is a big question that a lot of people are thinking about internally that maybe you can help them with. How can we be funnier, man? Like, how can we get out and like make ourselves more humorous, more, life of the party? And I think a lot of people have some walls put up around that. But I think that if there was somebody that could make a suggestion or add some insight there that, if you did this or try this, then there's a potential you could be funnier in your sales calls. You could be funnier in your just dinner talk. You could be funnier in your relationship or at the,
Honesty, just
dinner.
say what you're thinking.
Say what you're thinking.
Honesty, say what you're thinking. Don't try to be funny, because that's what's funny is your thought is funny. Two, obviously you guys you're in a world where you have to maybe be careful with honesty, because you could be in a workplace environment and that could get you fired, or it could offend somebody. Unfortunately, in the real world, you can't be as honesty, but that's what I do. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. If I'm talking to someone off stage and they say something, I say what comes to my mind right away. And I think it's funny because it's real and honest and it's what people are thinking, right? I'm not doing Jim Carrey. I'm just saying words, but I'm just saying what I thought. So
a great answer, man.
You know what I mean?
That's such a good answer. Yeah.
You're being honest. It's all part of the conversation. Someone says something, you're like, yeah, that's weird. And then they're taken back. They're like, why is that? You know what I mean? You're like, it's just whatever. It's what I thought.
Yeah. It almost sounds like if someone was.
It can't be funny though, man. If you have a real life job and you're in a work environment, you kind of can't, man. That's the problem.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
It pays your bills, so you can't get in trouble. But a lot of things, being funny sometimes to me is honest. Like if you watch Succession, it's very funny because every character in that show is brutally honest to who they have an encounter, especially Macaulay Culkin's brother, who's one of the stars on that show. He plays this asshole. He walks around. And he goes, "Get out of me, you fucking dork!" Like the way he is he's just being honest with all his interactions with people. He's like, he's just why that show's so funny. Everybody's honest with each other.
Right.
They're saying what they're thinking, and they're saying what the audience is thinking. This guy's a bitch. You're like, why are you such a bitch? So like it would be great if you worked in a company, and it's in sales. They probably still have it a little bit, depending on what the room is like. But they'll be like, if you could call it what it is, it's funny.
Spot on. That's really good. I would say, if you're outside your work environment where you could be, I guess you could say, thrown in timeout or troubled or fired, go home and try it, right? Like play around with it. And
people are funny is because we learn the way they think. That's why you like any comedian. You like the way they think. It's not their voice. It's not their face. It's not anything on the outside. You like their thoughts. And if you're not sharing your thoughts honestly, then how are you supposed to be funny? So even when one of the whatever guys you hang out with, think about him right now. Like, why is he funny? If you really think about it, you're like, it's his thoughts. It's not, oh, he might be funny because he walks funny. Oh, that guy walks funny. There's a lot of guys that walk funny, but they're not funny. You're just like, oh, he walks funny. And if anything, it's more annoying. You're like, why does he walk funny? That pisses me off.
But you saying something like that would be the funny part right there, right?
Yes.
It's like if you were just to say that.
Walk is annoying. And then you laugh because you're all like, yeah, you know what it is. It is that guy does have an annoying walk. Yeah. It's a funny walk. And the fact that his walk is funny is fucking annoying. Like, why are you walking like that? People don't walk like that. Like, it's a very noticeable walk. Like, if people saw all 5 of us walking, they would see your walk. And if you said that, everybody would laugh because they're thinking that. And you're being honest about it. And, someone might get their feelings hurt, but it is what it is.
I think that also stresses a powerful realization of being yourself. Imagine we lived in a world where everybody actually said what they were thinking without the fear of being judged or ridiculed because they have wonky thoughts. Like, the reality is we all have some crazy thoughts, man. The difference is a lot of just
not be able to handle that. Like, there you go. Can't say that.
Right.
Wouldn't be able to handle it. They would be crying all day.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we said, the guys could be like, oh, hey, what's up? I'm like, yeah, walk up and you're like, you don't look good today. Like, yeah, long night, whatever. Imagine if you walked up to a girl like, oh, you look tired. They'd just be crying all day. They're like, the society has brainwashed women into appearance. Men care about appearance here and there, but we also can look hungover and just own it. Yeah, long night. Anyways, so let's get back to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A girl, her whole weekend could be ruined because of a pimple.
A comment, yeah. Some small judgment.
That's what society did to them. We didn't do it.
Right.
And then we're told we can't,
Yeah, versus just accepting it. Like, if somebody calls me a ugly, brown, unshaved face, scar face, like, cool, man. Great, thanks.
If anything, they're like, you're a typical door guy at a club in Vegas. That's what you're the guy who decides if we can get in. That's what you are. That's what you look like.
That's funny. That is funny. Used to be, by the way.
Yeah, you're a host.
Former.
You're a Vegas host.
Former. I know, man. That was a good run, man. That was a fun time. I enjoyed that. Well, dude, hopefully we can see each other out here again in Vegas pretty soon, man.
Yeah, I should be there in the summer.
Okay, I'll have to come check you out, man. Where can we find you, man? We'll have the jam again and dive into some more stuff in the future, man. This was fun. I really enjoyed it.
This was fun. I will share this because I feel like I don't know what I said, but I know a lot of it I liked. When you say shit, sometimes it's for yourself. So,
dude, the whole purpose is for other people, man. And so your point of yourself, true, agreed with that always. But I dude, live in the distribution of letting other people hear it from that horse's mouth and let them internalize it and see what it does for them. So yeah, man, if you could share this, that'd be great, man. But let's share where we can share you at, so we can get some
mostly everything is on my YouTube, and shows are on michaellenoci.com. I'm sure my name will be on there if you just go to that.com. Got all these upcoming shows coming out. Massachusetts, Phoenix, Chicago, Fort Lauderdale, New York, Philadelphia, Southern California. So check those out. And then all my stuff, I post mostly everything on my YouTube page, Michael Lenoci. You just type that in, and I got weekly podcast up there. A bunch of my stand up is on there, and yeah, that's the same. My handle for everything is the same on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, Facebook. It's all the same at Michael Lenoci. Give me a holler. Say you heard me on here, and let me know. That will be interesting. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you, brother. And he's funny. I'm telling you right now, I've seen him several times in performance. And so, whether it's Laugh Factory at MGM.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was oh, sorry, Mirage is where I saw you that way. Yeah. So it's great, man. Y'all will have a lot of fun and laugh your A's off. AZZs. All right, brother. Before we go, man, I got to ask you the last question, man. What does always on the grow mean to you?
Evolving.
I thought you were gonna hit me some funny shit, man. I thought you were gonna hit me with some funny stuff.
Oh,
but that's a good answer. But that's a good answer, by the way. Yeah.
Well, it used to be always on the grow. Now it's not so much. So
there it was. But evolving is great, man. Straight up. That's a fantastic way to look at it, man. So keep doing that for yourself. I really appreciate you and for you taking the time to come on here. I know this is only the beginning for you. I know you enjoy your quality of life out there, and I know you're making your moves to build yourself out on a course that is unique to you. Stand on your own 2 feet and go out there and dominate. And it's exciting to watch your journey, man. It really is. So keep that up, brother, and we'll rock this again. But in the meantime, man, it's been a pleasure having you as a guest.